Well, if NBA games were 30 minutes, the Pacers would have looked great in Atlanta. Unfortunately, the last 18 minutes, a disaster for the Pacers. They absolutely fall apart, ending the road trip on a sour note. But Siakam was good. Bennedict Mathurin is back, and so much more to get to on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and Circle City Spin. And today, the Pacers went to Atlanta. The game got moved up, and they got smoked. But that wasn't even really the story of the game. The first 30 minutes were awesome. The centerless lineups looked good again. The last 18 minutes, an absolute, no doubt about it, disaster. The Pacers defense completely falls apart. And yet, some fun things to talk about. Bennedict Mathurin is back. Pascal Siakam completely took over a game for about 7 or 8 minutes. Some other young players with some noteworthy things as the Pacers head home from one of their longest road trips of the season. Thank goodness for the Pacers that this game got moved up 6 hours to 1:30 p.m. due to weather, because by the hour, their powers were being taken away. They started great, and they got worse and worse and worse every single quarter on their way to defeat. And it was a really strange, like, you'd look at this game and go, oh, they lost by 16. And in theory, a blowout is not a poor way to describe how the Pacers played. They were that bad at the end. But for over half the game, they were straight up just better than the Hawks. And their biggest lead came in the third quarter. They surged at that time. And the start of the game was really telling that it looked like this was going to be, a nice outing for the Pacers, right? You think it's going to be an early test. Here comes Nyaka Kongwu to the rim, opening up a Hawks three, but then it was all Pacers. 2 pick sixes, Johnny Furphy getting a steal, getting to the bucket, good ball movement, good player movement. This no center thing, again, proving to pay dividends for the Pacers in terms of their offensive flow. They're just rocking, right? Their early threes were all really open, and I thought their defense at the basket in the first quarter was really good. They have to focus so much on low man rotations and being connected as a unit at the rim when they're playing without a center. Johnny Furphy does a good job at that. Pascal Siakam's doing a great job at that. We'll talk about Siakam's defense later, but I thought it was just sublime in this game, right? And so the continuing a trend of, in these games, they have 3 times now started a game without a center this year. They played Miami early this month. They scored 36 in the first quarter of that game. They just played OKC a couple nights ago. They scored 39 in the first quarter of that game. They just scored 38 in the first quarter of this one. I'm not saying that is totally correlated, because with the same starting 5 on the floor, they only scored 28 in the third quarter, but it is the third time in a row that it's happened, and they looked great to start the game. And given the way they've played of late, that felt noteworthy, because these bench-heavy Hawks groups that came in, they couldn't score very much, right? It made everything so much easier for the Pacers in general, and I'm really over-explaining the start of the game to say I thought the Pacers were going to win. They were playing great. They were moving very well. The flow of the game was in their favor. The third quarter was chaotic to start, and that usually benefits the Pacers. And there was one specific play that I thought actually sealed it, that the Pacers were going to win. There was a tipped ball by the Hawks by the Pacers that almost cost them a backcourt violation. Nesmith almost loses it. He goes back to midcourt. He keeps the ball alive barely. He flips it to Siakam, who drills a 3 late in the shot clock. I think that put the Pacers up like 12 or 13. It's just like, it feels like their game. They started well. Their new lineup was rocking. The chaos was in their favor. Pascal Siakam's balling. Random lucky plays are in their favor. And then in the middle of the third quarter, they're up 15. And only one stretch made you raise your eyebrows to that point. And that was CJ McCollum hitting a bunch of threes just before halftime. 3 of them that cut the Pacers lead down from 11 to about 4. That was the stretch that actually shifted momentum. And then in the third quarter, after the Pacers made subs, the game was over. They got smoked the rest of the way. An absolute disaster after they made subs. So to run through, just looking at the play-by-play to explain the timing, Siakam actually scores on a pass from Andrew Nembhard. Nembhard had 11 assists at the time. Siakam was up to 21 points. The Pacers were up 85-70. They crossed the 6-minute mark of the third quarter with that being the score. But their normal rotation, I always have to explain this for the millions of people that go, why'd they take Siakam out? Siakam plays 3 stints every half, a very rare star in that way. He came out for his normal rotation in the first half. That was not a problem. And in comes Ben Mathurin, and in comes Micah Potter, and the Pacers just crumble immediately. Christian Koloko, bucket. Dyson Daniels, bucket. Jalen Johnson, 2 free throws. Dyson Daniels, bucket. Their lead's already single digits. Christian Koloko again on a running alley-oop after Mathurin misses at the basket, and all of a sudden it's a 7-point game. The Pacers would score again, but their lead was trimmed significantly when when Pascal Siakam came back in not long later with 3:45 to go. So we only got to rest for 2 minutes, which is noteworthy. Then Ben Shepherd comes in, and so it's basically all bench with Siakam. It's Siakam, Mathurin, Potter, McConnell, and Shepherd. And that group has been fine. They've asked Siakam to carry those groups all season, but in this instance, they were not. And the bench defensive groups that have been somewhat effective for the Pacers that involve other players. Sometimes it's been Huff, sometimes it's been Isaiah Jackson. Jarris Walker's been a part of those. Aaron Nesmith has changed his pattern a bit, a part of those. None of those guys are on the floor. Siakam played a great defensive game in this game. None of the rest of these guys did, although Shepherd was better than he's been of late. And their lead just slowly dwindled down, and their 15-point lead with 6 minutes to go in the quarter was gone with 42 seconds left. It took them 5 minutes and 18 seconds to blow a 15-point lead. It was a disaster. A 23-7 run for the Hawks took barely over 5 minutes. They were scoring almost every trip, and when they didn't, they were getting a bunch of offensive rebounds to keep their possessions alive. Random players were hitting threes. Mohamed Gay hit one. Dyson Daniels hit his first three in over a month, right? That's all disastrous defensive stuff. And some of those shooters, it's just unlucky. But the Pacers defense completely fell apart. And their offense, which was so good, was just Siakam. Nembhard hit a shot with 3:45 to go in the quarter. TJ McConnell hit one with 4:53 to go in the quarter. Outside of that, only Siakam scored for the final. Oh, boy. It's actually longer than I thought. Basically, the entire quarter outside of Jarris Walker free throws with 11 minutes to go in the quarter. Every other basket was him. He was awesome, and to be clear, in the third quarter, like special levels of awesome. We'll talk about it later, but they completely fell apart defensively in that stretch and could not overcome it. And what I noticed, or at least what I felt like was the case, and this felt like Siakam is being taxed with a lot of playing time, as he should. He was playing awesome, but you can only go so much. They played him 35 minutes at the end of a road trip, as they looked gassed to me, which it was interesting. I had some competing thoughts about this. They just looked really slow and gassed when they closed the third quarter, and Siakam's sub was a big part of it. Michael Potter was struggling in this game. And so I wondered at the moment, I was like, man, was that third quarter for a while Siakam just propping up a really gassed group, or is that unfair to say? They just had 2 days off. Now, granted, travel's been goofy, the weather's been tough, but what actually just happened? And then I got a text from somebody who I don't know if they want this to be revealed. They don't work for the Pacers or anything, but they said, I wonder how emotionally draining that OKC win was. And that at least hit me as like a very credible thought that like, in tandem with this being the end of a road trip and them just completely falling apart out of nowhere, it felt like their emotion for the game and their actual physical level of play completely sapped. I'm not saying that's what I think happened, but for some reason they looked exhausted all of a sudden. And the bench defense was a mess. And the bench for the Pacers, I want to do a segment on this at some point soon, maybe with a guest, maybe not. Their bench has been not very good of late, and they've gotten away with it because the starter with those groups has been good, or they've mixed and matched successfully. In this game, that was not the case at all, and you can cleanly see it in the plus minuses. Johnny Furphy plus 15, Jarris Walker even, Pascal Siakam -3 because he played with the bench. Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard were both slight positives. However, the bench rotation, Micah Potter -19, Ben Mathurin -25, TJ McConnell -18, Ben Shepherd -17, Isaiah Jackson -12. The second unit got run over, completely run over. And they kind of did in the first half too, but not to that extent. They were at least stable enough. The lead grew again early in the second quarter before going away. And then the starters picked it back up. This time, the bench kind of trimmed into it. The Pacers were down 4-ish with 9 minutes to go. And then the starters couldn't do anything about it. And that's where the gas level really kicked in, is they couldn't rely on Siakam anymore. The Hawks were scoring every single trip. And this, to me, is where you wonder about the non-center starting thing. They're 2-1 in these games. I'm not saying that this is like a crisis of alignment. They need to reconsider this entire strategy. But then you go to your second units, and things feel totally different. Now Jarris Walker is not a part of those. Now someone else, maybe it's Furphy, is not playing as much with those groups. So you lose something. You lose some level of size with those groups, especially, Siakam Potter is not small, but that's not the group that's out there all the time. There are moments when Siakam's not on the floor. And so 3 of your bench players are McConnell, Shepherd, and Mathurin. I just think you could feel a lot of that. You could feel a lot of the team being gassed. You could feel a lot of the size difference from that. I'm not saying the rotation cost them this game at all, but I did feel that in a way that I didn't really feel it in the first two games the Pacers played without starting a center this season. And that's something to at least keep an eye on as they keep kind of adventuring with their front court rotation and figuring out what works. The last 18 minutes of this game, Pacers defense fell apart. Their starters couldn't pick up the pieces. 18 minutes of play. The Pacers scored 31 points. That's like not good, but not an absolute disaster, I suppose. That would lead to something like 85 to 90 in a game. Really bad, but not like Detroit Pistons game they just played level of bad. They gave up 62. That is atrocious. That is horrible, horrible, horrible. You'd give up 150 points if you did that in a full game. The first half was a shootout. The second half, the Hawks kept scoring. The Pacers did not. The Pacers defense just inept all night, and they lose. And yet, still, some important things to talk about. So many notes. Welcome back, Ben Mathurin. Where's Jay Huff? Johnny Furphy's minutes, a big topic of question that I got. So many other players to get to. And I have things to say about tanking that I think people are completely not noticing. We'll get to all that coming up here on Locked On Pacers. But first, everybody, I'm going to talk to you about TurboTax. Tax season does not have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms and work to get you every single deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If they didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. The taxes off your plate, you get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day. Make Locked On Hawks your second listen. Brad Rowland will tell you more about this game, about the Hawks finding an awesome offensive night thanks to shooters that don't normally shoot, and the likes of CJ McCollum's heater and Nick Alexander-Walker being a most improved player candidate, and so much more. And you, listener, yes, you. If you listen a lot, the Everydayer Club is certainly for you. Ad-free episodes of Locked On Pacers, an exclusive Discord chat with other Everyday Club members. It is the move. You should check it out. Link in the description of this episode. Okay, lots to get to, but I got to start with Ben Mathurin. He's back. Great news for the Pacers. Keep evaluating him, see what he can look like this season. Perhaps a little healthier. We'll see what kind of level. He returned from the foot thing, and then we found out a couple weeks later he's still dealing with it. Who knows what his true level of health is at this time. Certainly, I don't want to say he's like fully 100%. Obviously, I don't know if anybody is at this time of the season, but especially somebody who's dealing with two separate injuries. So he comes off the bench. Jeremiah Johnson reports Rick Carlisle says they're watching his minutes. He plays about 25 in this game. Evaluating him is going to be vital for the Pacers basically every game that he plays. And he comes in, and right away, Jarris Walker gets beat on a cut. I thought, man, that's brutal, because Mathurin, who's so much of a subject of his play this season, is about his defense. He didn't do anything wrong, but that hurts his defensive numbers. That just made me laugh. That has nothing to do with Ben Mathurin's play. Mathurin started awesome, popping off a screen into space, drills a three, gorgeous drive and floater with one hand in the lane, right? His start looked awesome. He was just doing his thing, getting to his spots, scoring like only Ben Mathurin can. I believe in the first half he was 5 for 6, 5 for 5. If only I could just look this up, because I'm sitting 2 feet or 2 tabs over from a box score. Yeah, first half he was 6 for 7, whoop, 2 shots away. All of his points came in the first half, which was something to say, but he was awesome early. Now his defense was not. There was a play where I don't know if this was his fault, or there was a lot of people who, like, in theory it could have been their fault. Someone should have taken the ball. Someone should have taken this guy, whatever. But the Pacers scored and then just lost someone on the other end for an easy basket. Carlisle calls timeout. He's like showing them the play on the laptop. And then Mathurin follows that up with a wow level drive and contact and finish. He just looked like himself in the first half, scoring, getting wherever he wanted, finishing, being Ben Mathurin. And then a play that this stood out to me a lot as well. And this is a positive that is a rare positive for him. He, in the second half, drove to the basket. It's probably in the first half. No, it was in the second half. He drove to the basket. He thought he got fouled. And what does Ben Mathurin normally do in that situation? Hands up, look at the ref. Hey, where's the foul call? And he put his hands up for like half of a second, like such a short amount of time, and then realized he needed to get back and just turned and beelined it back on defense. And I thought that is a huge thing for him. If he can do that more, that would go a long way in helping his defense. His turnover was ugly. He stopped the ball. He sized up a pick and roll. He drove right into a guy and just completely lost it. But other than that, a good scoring game for him, a not very good defensive game for him. I am certainly keeping an eye on his defense as the season progresses, but second half he was over 3 with 1 steal, 1 turnover, and they got smoked by 25 points in his minutes. First half he was very good, 6 for 7 with 16 points, 2 boards, and an assist, and his minutes went much better. So Taylor 2 halves for him, one great one, one not so good one. It was his first game back. We'll keep assessing him obviously right here on Locked On Pacers, but nothing super ugly. In fact, mostly positive. I thought that was very good to see from him, and played 25 minutes, which is also a good sign. We'll see what keeps going there. A couple other players I want to get to, but I first want to talk about the rotation and then a little note about tanking before we just unload the notebook. Jay Huff didn't play until the last 3 minutes. I have no idea what's going on. 3.5 minutes for Jay Huff. He comes in, blocks a shot. Kind of blocks a shot. He didn't get credited for a block, hits a 3, an assist, a rebound, and he had a chance to score. I think there was a foul called right before he shot it. If he had made it, or if it counted, he would have had the most made shots for a Pacers center at 65 seconds after he checked into the game. I don't know. People are asking. I don't know what's going on. I was not on this road trip. I had to do stuff at my house, and it would have been expensive. And I was not in Atlanta, so I can't ask. But, it's not weird to me that they went no center for these games, but he was the backup the first time they did it against the Heat, and then barely played the last 2 games. He was wearing a back pad on the bench or some sort of wrap around his waist in a way that I don't think I've seen him do this season. So I wonder if something's bugging him, but he wasn't on the injury report. So I'm not going to assume something is bothering him. I don't know. I don't know why he's not playing. I understood the mobility of Potter, certainly against OKC and Chet. I understood them going no center against the Heat, but Huff played in that game with Bam on the perimeter. In this game, Okongwu is a perimeter guy, shoots more threes, but he didn't play the whole game. He played 31 minutes. He took 6 threes. Koloko off the bench is not a perimeter guy at all. He cut the Pacers up, though. And so I thought they'd go to Huff at some point. They never really did. I do get the Pacers evaluating a lot of front court options ahead of the trade deadline. I'm not saying it's stupid for them to do that. I just don't know why Huff is not in the mix. But I do recall thinking, I went back at halftime and looked through a bunch of old podcasts and notes and things to see. I recall noting once that I thought he got hit in a game and was laboring for a second, but I couldn't find where I said it. It was trending towards his first DNP, but he did actually appear, and he did do stuff when he came in. The other thing people kept asking me is, why didn't Furphy play more? He did play well, to be clear. Johnny Furphy, plus 15. He was playing with the starters. Mostly that helped there. But 18.5 minutes, he made 2 of his 5 shots. He had 5 rebounds. He's a monster on the glass. 2 steals and assists. Johnny Furphy's playing well. And I agree that he played, it felt less like you didn't see him on the floor as much as a lot of these other wings in the mix. A lot of Jarris, a lot of Nesmith, a lot of Mathurin, a little bit of Shepherd. Shepherd's role is going to go away now that, not completely, but some now that Mathurin's back. And so I agree that it's worth asking, if Furphy should be playing more than he did in this game. If you're asking me that, though, or if you're asking yourself that, ask yourself who should play less. Should Jarris Walker play less? Should Aaron Nesmith play less? Should Ben Mathurin play less? Should Siakam play less? I don't view Furphy and Shepherd as overlapping roles. Shepherd basically only plays the 2 now, right? So 3-ish. There is a small amount of overlap on the wing, so you could say Shepherd, but not all of his minutes. They need to rest some combination of Nembhard and Mathurin and McConnell. At some point of the game, Shepherd's going to play. So which of those guys are you playing less? Nesmith, Walker, Siakam, or Mathurin? And that's not easy to say. They have a lot of guys in the mix in those spots. That's a good thing. They're all players who should be playing and they should be evaluating. But I don't know who I would have played in Furphy instead of. Now, thinking about this game specifically and the way the second half trended, perhaps whoever they felt like was being the worst defender. Siakam was defending his butt off. Nesmith has typically been a good defender, but Walker, not historically an awesome defender, at least to me, but he had 5 steals in this particular game. That would point to Ben Mathurin being the answer, especially in the second half. But Mathurin is certainly somebody they're evaluating. So I didn't personally feel anything weird about that. I felt way more about the Huff stuff. Okay, I want to talk about the tank for a second, or whatever you call it, right? I don't think they're tanking. I think they're just playing quite poorly and have been really hurt. But whatever, they certainly should be thinking about development more than winning at this point of the season. I need somebody to realize something. Okay, I see people worried about the tank when they're up by 15 in the third quarter. I think this, first of all, dreamy road trip for the Pacers, right? Clear progress from their young guys. Furphy was good. Walker was good. Shepherd had good games. Nembhard was balling at point guard, right? They got Jackson had 6 rebounds and 5 rebounds in consecutive games, albeit a wobbly trip. Ben Mathurin back on the floor. That's great, right? Evaluate guys. They went 1-4. They had 3 second half leads, 2 fourth quarter leads, and they won a game, right? They're playing well. They're getting progress from young players, and they still at 1-4. For their record, good trip. And I think now, I don't think people have kind of realized what has happened in the standings of late. And I understand that. The Wizards stink. They're losing a bunch of games. Push that to the side for a second. And the Nets are losing a lot of games. The Jazz are like too good. Keontae George is balling. Markkanen's going to come back from the sickness at some point. He actually is sick. The Hornets have won 3 in a row and 6 of their last 10. The Grizzlies are just kind of too competent. The Mavs keep finding ways to win. They're 6 of their last 10. There's a huge kind of gap between the bottom and then teams 7 and up now. The Hornets are in the 7th worst record in the league. They've won 40% of their games. If you need a reference, if the Pacers right now won 13 games in a row, they would still not have won 40% of their games this season. They could win 13 in a row, and they'd still probably be in the bottom 6 records in the league. Now, obviously, some of these teams in this Dallas, Milwaukee, Memphis kind of trio will, I think, at some point try to angle down a little bit. But for now, and I think as the Pacers' goals come into play at some point for them too, they'll also know what their season's about. I don't think the Pacers will fall out of the bottom 6. Now, obviously, being 1 is infinitesimally better than being 6. I'm not saying that they should be like, oh, it's okay if they win or anything like that. And Utah's like kind of capably good. But I think the Pacers' floor is probably 6. So I only think there's 5 teams the Pacers really care about the rest of the way with their record. And it's not like so crazy when they win 1 game against the Thunder. The Wizards, the Pelicans, the Kings, and the Nets. Those are the teams to keep your eye on. The Wizards, after the Trae Young trade, are just absolutely awful. They've lost 9 in a row, and they look terrible. The Nets have lost 5 in a row. MPJ's been in and out. They just scored 5 points total in a game against at the Knicks, right? I thought I was about to say the Celtics. The Knicks, they're playing terrible, right? So the Pelicans have won 2 in a row. They're healthy. They're capable. Those are the teams to keep an eye on. And again, I'm not saying it's okay for them to just go rattle off a bunch of wins and get up to 6. That's not awesome. But keep that in mind as everybody says, yeah, awesome. It's it's okay. You're not the smartest guy in the room because you're rooting for them to lose. Okay. Sorry, that was rude. Let me finish with some notes stuff on Jarris Walker, Andrew Nembhard, Micah Potter, and many other things to close out today's Locked On Pacers. But first, everybody, got to talk to you about Gametime. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that has not always been so simple. That is why Gametime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. Puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans. Pull up the Gametime app, pick an upcoming game. You'll have tickets locked in within minutes. You can see the all-in price up front, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. You'll be able to see the view from your seat before buying. Makes your decision easy. Their zone deals will stand out to you because you just choose your section. Bam, you save. Great last-minute ticket options, including for NBA games. Everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. And remember, that's gametime.co, not .com. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On Bucks. Everything's bad for the Bucks. They lost to the Nuggets with nobody playing. Giannis got hurt. They stink. They're out of the plan. The Hornets might be about to catch them. Whew. Locked On Bucks will have more on what on earth can they even do. They're lucky they have the worst of their pick in the Pelicans, and they can actually kind of still tank. But yuck for the Milwaukee Bucks. Locked On Bucks will have more. Okay, let's close this one out. The starters in this game, the small ball starters, not the problem. 12 minutes and 27 seconds with Furphy, Walker, Nesmith, Nembhard, and Siakam. The Pacers were plus 18 with that group on the floor. That's awesome. By the way, they lost by 16, meaning every other lineup was minus 34 in 35 and a half minutes. Basically a point a minute if they didn't have their starting 5 on the floor. An absolute disaster. Plus 5 was McConnell, Mathurin, Potter, Nesmith, Siakam. Again, more defense with that bench. That only played a minute and a half. Every other group was either plus 1 or worse. So they had a lot of trouble getting the right groups on the floor that could contain the Hawks outside of their starters. And that is something for them to consider, is finding the way to get a little more defense with the bench, because that's actually something that I felt good about, is even their bench scoring being down, those groups keep up by actually having capable units that can guard on the floor. It didn't feel like they had any of those in this game. There needs to be a little bit more balance to me between those groups. Furphy, who people questioned why he didn't play more, I should have just said this when talking about him. I felt like to start this game, there were 5 of him on the floor. He was everywhere. On the glass, on defense, moving, getting into the right spots on offense. He just is playing smart, basketball and covering a lot of ground and using his space and his poetriness to just get the ball. And that's a valuable player, man. He just gets in there and makes stuff happen. That's obviously very valuable. Pascal Siakam's defense was the most underrated thing that happened in this game because he was awesome on offense for a long stretch of the third quarter. He had 26 points, 9 boards, 4 assists, 3 blocks. That's amazing. An amazing game. 3 blocks is incredible. Took him 21 shots to get there. Not his most efficient game, but his defense was spectacular. Jalen Johnson, 5 for 19 with 15 points. That wasn't an always one-to-one matchup, but it did happen. But Onyeka Okongwu had 12 points on 13 shots. Corey Kispert had 7 points on 8 shots. A lot of forwards really struggled for the Hawks in this game. Siakam, no matter who he was guarding, was doing an awesome job. He was moving around. He was captaining things, blocking shots. He was fantastic on the end of the floor. And man, did the defense die when he exited the game. And he was rocking it in the third quarter. I mean, that start of the third was as dominant as he gets, hitting all sorts of varieties of shots. The Hawks could not stop him. 17 points in just the third quarter for Siakam. The Pacers as a team scored 28 in total. So only 11 besides him. Only 4 made shots besides him. Only 2 made free throws outside of him. He did so much for the Pacers in that quarter. And their lead still slipped away basically the second he left the game. That's been their problem all year. And his all-star case keeps being made by the moments like that. They play Boston. The second he leaves the game, the Pacers fall apart. They play the Hawks. The second he leaves the game, the Pacers fall apart. That is how important Pascal Siakam is to the Pacers, and everybody knows how talented he actually is. And hey, I've done a lot of all-star analysis with his stats and with the East. Giannis's injury, if it keeps him out for the game, that is another spot that opens up, and perhaps an international player spot, unless there's 9 international players already. But another replacement spot available, perhaps helpful for Siakam. We'll see the international pool named originally, if that helps him or hurts him in that way. TJ McConnell was very good. He made a lot of heady plays in this game in the second quarter, I believe, is when he really got going. He was just getting around 7 for 11 with 16 points, 3 assists, but his defense, not particularly great, but he was barbecue chicken. CJ McCollum, he just took him to wherever he wanted on the floor. It was very impressive. Okay. Micah Potter just played awesome. Heroic performance against the Thunder. I called him the unsung hero. He was moving the ball. He was moving himself. He was getting rebounds. He made huge responsive plays. Great game, Micah Potter. This was not a great Micah Potter game. This was among the worst games Micah Potter has played for the Pacers in his serious minutes. Potter in this one plays almost 20 minutes. 2 for 8. He missed all 4 of his threes. 5 boards, 2 turnovers, 2 fouls, minus 19. 4 points on 2 for 8 from the field. Oof, not very good. Okongwu gave him trouble. He got stripped by Luke Kennard on a drive at one point. I mean, it was not a good start to the game from him. And he was like more stable throughout the game, but it was such a sluggish start. It felt very weird. He's been like, he doesn't really have like, he looks inept kind of moments. Like when he's bad, it's just like, the stuff he's normally good at just isn't there for him tonight. Or when he's less effective, I should say. That doesn't make you bad. In this game, I thought he was like, air quotes, bad, where stuff that is, he shouldn't even be doing, or he's late to something, or he's getting hit and not responding in ways that he usually does. Micah Potter's shown a lot for the Pacers. He's deserving of the minutes he's gotten, but this was not a good showing from him. Isaiah Jackson had a Eurostep pass to a corner shooter, and it was a sick pass. That was crazy. But when he was on the floor, kind of the same issue as Potter, the Pacers defense was awful. Jackson, he lost his man at one point on a very obvious pick and pop. He was minus 12 in his minutes. He only played 12 minutes. I did not think his defense was particularly good at either, especially on the team level. Last guy, Jarris Walker, who's just been fantastic of late. 2 for 4 from deep in this game. 7 boards, 3 assists, 5 steals. 12 points is obviously huge, but doing all those other things are what the Pacers really, really care about. And he missed his first 3 of the game. And I actually wrote in my notes that I was surprised. Like, that is how well he shot. Remember how awful he shot early in the season? And now it's like, oh my gosh, he missed. And then he made his second 3, and you're just like, yep, there he goes. And then he made his third one. He had another, and for the first time in a while, he had a stupid turnover where he just launched it out of bounds, and it kind of looked like it was to nobody. His other 2 turnovers were much more normal and not like Jarris Walker just making a poor pass kind of stuff. He did force a drive through traffic and get blocked. I think that's the next thing for him. He's getting consistency right now. I don't think he'll be this great. His shot will probably settle in closer to 40% if history tells us anything. His 3-point shot, that is. But, the next step after he feels like a night-to-night guy, if that ever happens, is that kind of drive. Because he tried to get to the left side of the basket and just got swatted. That would be huge for him in development. Last thing, look, I get why they do it. the Siakam Nembhard get fouled and then burp it up shot when they haven't even gathered the ball. I hate it. I just hate it. It feels so like gamey. Nembhard got it in this game where they gave him a free throw for it. I think he made the shot. I get why they do it, right? I totally get why they do it. I don't think they're doing anything like wrong, but I just try. It's like, guys, come on. You were not shooting. Give me a break. But it's working. And if it's working, they should keep doing it because it's earning the Pacers points. And that is the point of basketball, is to earn points. But man, does it feel gamey when it goes their way. And that was Pacers Hawks. Tomorrow, we'll talk about stuff. I want to talk about the bench. I want to maybe dive into this small ball stuff. I want to see what Mathurin's role should be on this team. I have lots of stuff I want to talk about. I have not mentioned this to anybody, so I need to figure out who would be a good guest. We'll talk trade stuff throughout the week. They play another game on Wednesdays to come back home, so plenty more to get to. But the trade deadline is in 9 days. If you're listening the day this comes out, thank you all so much for listening today. You can find me on social media at Tony R. East and this podcast at Locked On Pacers. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see ya very soon.